Hey nerds, we are going to do a review and breakdown of Dune Prophecy, episode 3, starting now. Welcome to the Nerd Social. I am Colin. So, episode 3 is titled Sisterhood Above All. It is written by Monica Owusu-Breen and Jordan Goldberg, and it's directed by Richard J. Lewis. The spoiler-free logline of episode 3 is following a tragedy, young Tula worries about being accepted despite her family name, while skeptical Valya struggles with the decision to take the sisterhood's vow. Years later, Valya receives a message that confirms her suspicions. So my three thoughts about episode 3 is that it is very much like Game of Thrones in space. This is what I said last week. Especially in this episode, there were scenes in which I thought we were in Winterfell, and I mentioned to myself that winter might be coming to the Dune universe. This episode is also a good example of how flashbacks can be done effectively to fill in the gaps of a story. As I said back in episode 1, I was curious about Valya's and Tula's life before the time jump. This episode does help to fill in that gap, but I wonder why they had to make this choice in episode 3 to talk about their early lives rather than just continue the story in episode 1 and then do the just time jump in episodes 2 and 3. So I don't know what they were thinking here, but maybe in terms of the flow, they wanted to introduce all of the characters in episode 1. They didn't want to just go through the whole backstory. The story is fairly simple, which is perfectly fine, I think, because the audience can follow along. I've really enjoyed being engaged throughout this episode. I didn't really have any high expectations of it, even though Dune was a great movie. With the TV shows is hit or miss at times. This episode also shows how evil Valya and Tula can be to achieve their goal of status and power. There's definitely a lot of rage in Valya we'll see throughout her early life, and this feeling didn't even thaw when she became Mother Superior of the Sisterhood. So we saw some of that ruthlessness, some of that evilness that's in her blood when she was an adult. In terms of rating, I would give this episode a 10 out of 10, which is a theater rental. You would be thinking, geez, Colin, you're really crazy to give them a high rating, but I think it really deserves that. Knowing the backstory of Valya and Tula really helps to understand their motivations of who they are in the sisterhood, and to have an audience either root for them or to really hate. Just from a Game of Thrones reference, we all know about Joffrey and how people hated him. And so they just hate watch to see what evil deeds he will do next. This is similar to that. So we'll see if Dune Prophecy starts to build an audience and to build some of that ruthlessness that's in there. I think that in the previous HBO series, The Penguin, there was some building with Sophia Falcone's character being this evil person. So maybe they could do the same with Valya and Tula in this show. So those are my spoiler-free thoughts. If you'd like to hear more about Dune Prophecy and other content we put out there, please like, share, subscribe for more. We really appreciate your support, and we thank all of our supporters throughout all of our social media platforms for your attention to us. So without further ado, spoilers ahead. So we start off with a flashback of Valya, and here we see that there is a bitterness about the status of the Harkonnen family and how she feels that her family is really not fighting back against her perceived aggressions of the Atreides. And we also see that Griffin, her brother, is a very prominent part of the family trying to regain the status of the Harkonnen family, and Valya trying to do her part to become more prominent. And she doesn't really like this type of life because she knows that her family's been banished to this world, which is very remote. Griffin is the only one that kind of sees her for what she is, and he is trying to return the family to prominence. And the family also sees him as the golden ticket, per se, to return them to prominence. Unfortunately, what happens is that Griffin does die, so there's an issue with that because Varian Atreides was the one that killed him. Or at least we know that Valya accuses Valya and Atreides of killing him. So they're established this blood field with the Harkonnens and the Atreides. We saw that in the movies. We're seeing that here 10,000 years ago to be a very bitter rivalry between the two families. We also find out that Tula is hiding her Harkonnen identity, and Valya ends up joining the Sisterhood and figuring out what's happening there. But she has a lot of resistance to it, especially with Dorothea, who criticizes Valya for questioning what the sisters do, and there's a lot of tension already. And we saw her back in episode 1 where Valya basically used the voice to kill Dorothea because there is a rivalry. And so this leads to this scene where everyone has a test of will about the loyalty to the Sisterhood, and all of them leave after a while with the phrase "Sisterhood Above All," which is the title of this episode. We see that Valya is the one who is very defiant and does not put the sisterhood above herself, and gets the attention of the Mother Superior at that time, which is Raquel. We saw Raquel back in episode 1. And Raquel is intrigued by Valya's determination and also her gifts. Valya uses the gift of the voice on Raquel, which impresses her even more and really convinces her that she might be the heir apparent to be Mother Superior. We switch here to present day, where this sister told the news to Valya that Lila had passed away, and that she was able to communicate to her great-grandmother Raquel that there is something going on with Desmond Hart. And so Valya then gets some confirmation that Desmond Hart is not what he all seems to be, and that there's probably something going on Arrakis that made him to be that way, where he is almost defying her, where other people have not been able to defy her, he has been. So this is still a mystery as to what Desmond Hart is all about, but again, this reveals a lot of what Valya's fears are, is that there is someone out there that's even more powerful, and it might undermine the power seeking that Valya and Tula has been carefully trying to plan since childhood. We see here that they're on the homeworld Caliban, the Atreides homeworld, and we find out that Tula is almost like a secret agent in this love affair that she has with Ori. Ori is part of the Atreides family, and they end up being very close to one another. Tula is also very close to a younger boy that's here in a more sisterly, brotherly relationship. And Ori then finds out the truth that Tula's a Harkonnen, and didn't really have any issue with her being Harkonnen. I think that he was very naive to think that love conquers all. But we find out later on that Tula is a backstabbing individual and kills Ori at the end, and also slaughters all of these individuals by the bonfire. All these are part of the Atreides family. Get to see how evil Tula is, but she approaches it in a much more kinder, gentler way, whereas Valya is very headstrong. But it matches because the sisters still has the same goal of achieving power and status through the sisterhood, but they're going about it in very different ways. Whereas Valya is much more direct, Tula is much more underhanded in her approach. And this is the scene where Tula really regrets that she killed Ori. Actually doesn't regret that much, but it's almost as though she's doing it out of duty and obligation instead of out of love, because I think that she really does love him, but at the same time, she had a job to do. And to tell the audience that she wasn't fully ruthless, she let the young boy go. Whereas I think that Valya would have killed him no matter what. So there is still a sliver of humanity that's in Tula that says, maybe you should go away now. We then get to see, as Valya gets more and more powerful within the sisterhood, she was able to demonstrate the voice to a couple of her sisters here. And this was a scene where Valya was using the voice to ask one of the sisters to slap the other one. They're all amused in a weird way, but I don't know whether or not they felt even slightly afraid, because maybe they felt that Valya is their friend. But you can never underestimate Valya, because I think that she would be a character where if you get out of line with her, she probably would do murder and be okay with it. So I think there's a lot of naivete with the fellow sisters here of Valya's power and underestimating who she is. Later on, we find out that Valya went back to her homeworld, refusing to really take the steps to become Mother Superior. But Raquella was able to tell her that, look, you got to take care of your family business. If you don't take care of your family business, you cannot be Mother Superior, and you need to figure it out. Part of that ritual was for her to go through the agony, but she at first did not want to go through it, because I think that she still had a lot of family trauma to work through. And so that is why Raquella had the foresight to tell her, you got to figure this stuff out. And Dorothea in this instance called her a coward. Basically, look, you're supposed to do this and you want to be Mother Superior and you didn't do it. What's wrong with you? And she did. When she went back to her homeworld, Valya was able to go through the agony and then take her rightful place to become Mother Superior shortly thereafterwards. We see here the ritual that the other sisters are going through as they mourn Lila's death. But we find out later on that this is a fake out, and the sisters are knowing that she has moved on, but there's something at work here where Lila might be resurrected. We then get to see Valya in present day going to her uncle, and we saw that they didn't really leave on the best of terms with her family. And we don't know why she is going to see her uncle. Not sure as to the intentions yet, but we can speculate it probably has to do with Desmond Hart and the relationship maybe her uncle had with Desmond Hart and knowing about Arrakis. But it's left open-ended right now. We don't really know why they're meeting, but they're trying to bury the hatchet and maybe move forward in their relationship. And then finally, we see in the last scene of episode 3 that Tula pretends to euthanize Lila. But what happens is she then transports her to a life support machine, thinking machine, in a very secret room and filled her with spice. And even the machine was saying this might be a very risky procedure that you're going to do with Lila. But it seems like Tula is really hell-bent to try to revive her so that she gets a lot of the wisdom because of Raquella. She can get a lot of the wisdom back and maybe be able to have more of a say in terms of leadership. We can only speculate why she wants to do it, but part of it is that she does see Lila as her daughter, and Lila also sees Tula as her mother. So that might be a motivating factor as to why you want to get Raquella to spill the beans on Desmond Hart and other secrets that may be out there. So that was the end of the episode there. And those are my thoughts about Dune Prophecy episode 3. If you would like to hear more about Dune Prophecy and other content we put out there, again, please like, share, subscribe for more of that. And we will see you in the next video. All right. Take care, everybody.